The morning sun cast a golden glow across the sprawling gardens of Anmer Hall as William and Kate stepped onto their newly renovated terrace. After months of careful restoration, their Norfolk home was finally ready to welcome guests for the first time. The couple had spent the previous evening walking through each room, marveling at how perfectly everything had come together. Kate adjusted the fresh white roses in the entrance hall, while William checked the outdoor seating arrangements one final time. They had invited 30 of their closest friends and family members to celebrate this milestone. But what their guests didn't know was that the royal couple had something very special planned to show their appreciation. The idea had come to Kate 3 weeks earlier while she was sorting through old family photographs. She discovered a collection of handwritten letters from their wedding guests, each sharing personal memories and well wishes. Reading through them again, she realized how much these personal touches had meant to both of them over the years. That's when she suggested to William that they create something equally personal for each guest attending their home celebration. William had immediately embraced the idea, though he worried about finding enough time to make it meaningful. Between his royal duties and Kate's various charitable commitments, their schedules were packed solid. However, they both agreed that their friends and family deserved something that came from the heart, not just an expensive gift picked out by staff members. The couple decided to dedicate their evenings to this project, working together in William's study after their children had gone to bed. They gathered photographs, wrote personal notes, and carefully selected items that held special significance for each guest. Kate's artistic background proved invaluable as she designed beautiful presentations for each gift, while William contributed his memories and stories about their relationships with each person. As the first cars began arriving in the circular driveway, Kate felt a flutter of nervous excitement in her stomach. She had organized many formal events before, but this felt different. This was their home, their sanctuary, and they were opening it to the people who mattered most in their lives. The informality of it all was both refreshing and slightly overwhelming. William noticed his wife's nervousness and gently squeezed her hand. He reminded her that these were the people who had supported them through everything, from their university days to their wedding, and through all the challenges of royal life. Today wasn't about protocol or formality. It was about gratitude and friendship. The first to arrive was William's old university friend, James, accompanied by his wife Sarah. Kate greeted them with genuine warmth, leading them through the house and showing off the renovations. James marveled at how comfortable and lived-in the space felt, despite its grandeur. Sarah particularly loved the children's playroom, which Kate had designed with input from George, Charlotte, and Louis. As more guests arrived, the atmosphere became increasingly relaxed and joyful. Kate's sister Pippa brought her children, who immediately gravitated toward the garden where William had set up various outdoor games. The sound of laughter and conversation filled the air as old friends reconnected and new friendships began to form. What struck many guests was how natural and at ease both William and Kate appeared in their home environment. Away from the formal constraints of royal events, they were simply themselves, a loving couple who genuinely cared about the people in their lives. Kate moved effortlessly between groups, ensuring everyone felt welcome and included, while William entertained guests with stories about their renovation adventures, including a particularly amusing incident involving a chandelier that had nearly fallen on his head. The couple had carefully planned every detail of the day, from the locally sourced menu featuring seasonal ingredients from their own garden to the relaxed dress code that encouraged guests to feel comfortable. Children ran freely through the house and grounds while adults caught up on each other's lives, creating the kind of warm, family atmosphere that William and Kate had always envisioned for their home. As the afternoon progressed, anticipation began building among the guests. Many had noticed William and Kate exchanging meaningful glances and whispered conversations throughout the day. There was clearly something special planned, though nobody could quite guess what it might be. The royal couple had always been thoughtful hosts, but there was an extra energy and excitement in the air that suggested something truly memorable was about to unfold. The afternoon garden party was in full swing when Kate discreetly signaled to William from across the lawn. Their guests were scattered around the beautiful grounds, some admiring the newly planted rose garden while others watched the children play cricket on the freshly mowed grass. The catering staff moved quietly among the groups, offering refreshments and ensuring everyone was comfortable. William's childhood friend, Harry Patterson, was deep in conversation with Kate's university roommate Emma about their shared love of photography when he noticed William approaching with a slightly mischievous smile. Harry had known William long enough to recognize that particular expression. It usually meant his friend was up to something interesting. Kate gathered the children first, calling them over to the main terrace where she had set up a special seating area. George, Charlotte, and Louis were excited to be included in whatever surprise their parents had planned. The other children followed, their faces bright with curiosity and anticipation. Charlotte whispered loudly to her cousin that she thought her mummy and daddy had a secret, which made several adults chuckle. As the adult guests began to notice the gathering on the terrace, they naturally migrated toward the group. Kate's mother, Carol, exchanged knowing looks with William's private secretary, who had been helping coordinate the surprise elements of the day. Even though many of the staff members knew something special was planned, the exact details had been kept secret. William stood up and gently called for everyone's attention. The conversation gradually died down as 30 pairs of eyes turned toward him expectantly. He looked slightly nervous, which surprised some guests who were used to seeing him speak confidently at official events. This was different, though. This was personal. He began by thanking everyone for coming and for their patience with all the construction noise and chaos over the past year. Kate stood beside him, occasionally adding her own comments about specific memories from the renovation process. She mentioned how they had saved a piece of original wallpaper from each room, hoping to someday create a memory book about the restoration. The couple talked about what this house meant to them, not just as a retreat from their public duties, but as a place where they could be themselves with the people who truly knew them. William's voice became more emotional as he described how much their friends' support had meant during the more challenging periods of their lives. Kate then took over, explaining that they wanted to do something special to show their appreciation. She admitted that finding the right words to express their gratitude had been difficult, so instead, they had decided to create something more personal. The guests looked intrigued but still had no idea what was coming next. From behind a decorative screen on the terrace, William and Kate began bringing out beautifully wrapped packages, each one clearly labeled with a guest's name. The wrapping paper was elegant but simple, tied with ribbons in soft colors that complemented the garden setting. What made each package special was the small handwritten card attached to the ribbon. Young Louis, unable to contain his excitement, announced loudly that he had helped his parents choose some of the presents. This revelation made several guests smile, particularly those who had received gifts with his adorable, wobbly handwriting on the cards. Charlotte added that she had helped with the ribbons, demonstrating her careful bow-tying technique for anyone who wanted to see. As the packages were distributed, the guests realized that each gift was completely unique. There were no duplicate presents, and the weight and size of each package varied significantly. This wasn't a case of ordering 30 identical items from a catalog. Careful thought had clearly gone into each selection. The anticipation in the air was palpable as everyone held their personalized packages. Some guests gently shook their gifts, trying to guess what might be inside, while others simply admired the beautiful presentation. Kate suggested that they should all open their gifts together, which created an atmosphere of shared excitement reminiscent of Christmas morning. Emma, Kate's former roommate, was particularly curious about her package, which seemed to contain something soft and flexible. James, William's university friend, had received something that felt like a book or album. Each person was trying to guess what their personalized gift might be, creating a buzz of whispered speculation around the terrace. The moment had arrived for the big reveal, and both William and Kate looked nervous but excited to see their guests' reactions to the surprises they had so carefully prepared. The moment everyone had been waiting for finally arrived. Kate gave the signal, and 30 guests began carefully unwrapping their personalized gifts simultaneously. The sound of rustling paper filled the air, mixed with gasps of surprise and delight as people discovered what lay beneath the elegant wrapping. Emma was the first to fully reveal her gift, and her gasp was audible across the entire terrace. In her hands was a beautiful silk scarf, featuring a custom print of photographs from her university days with Kate. The images had been artistically arranged to create a stunning pattern, showing moments from their shared dormitory life, study sessions in the library, and various adventures around St. Andrews. Along one edge of the scarf, Kate had embroidered a small message in gold thread that read, "Forever grateful for late-night talks and endless laughter." James opened his gift to find a leather-bound photo album. But this wasn't just any collection of pictures. William had carefully curated images spanning their 20-year friendship, starting with blurry photos from their first week at university. Each page contained handwritten notes from William, sharing memories about specific moments and explaining why each photograph was significant to their friendship. The final page contained a recent photo of James's family at Anmer Hall, with a note promising many more memories to come. Carol, Kate's mother, discovered a beautiful wooden jewelry box crafted from timber salvaged from the old greenhouse that had been demolished during the renovation. Inside the box was a delicate necklace featuring a pendant made from a piece of sea glass that Kate had found during one of their family walks on the Norfolk coast. The accompanying note explained that every time Carol wore it, Kate would think of all the wisdom and support her mother had provided over the years. The children who had attended received gifts perfectly suited to their ages and interests. Harry Patterson's 8-year-old daughter found a complete art set along with a canvas that Kate had pre-sketched with an outline of Anmer Hall, encouraging the young artist to paint her own interpretation of the house. A note explained that Kate wanted to frame the finished painting and hang it in the children's playroom as a reminder of this special day. William's cousin received a vintage cricket bat that had once belonged to William's grandfather, along with documentation of its history and significance to the royal family. The accompanying letter from William shared stories about learning to play cricket with that very bat and expressed his hope that it would continue to bring joy to future generations. One of Kate's closest friends from her art history studies unwrapped a carefully preserved pressed flower collection. These weren't random flowers, but blooms from significant moments in Kate's life. A rose from her wedding bouquet, lavender from the garden at their first apartment, and daffodils from the meadow where William had proposed. Each flower was professionally preserved and presented in a beautiful frame, with calligraphy identifying the source and date. The most touching moment came when William's elderly former nanny, Jessie, opened her gift. Inside was a small framed photograph of William as a toddler that she had never seen before, along with a recent family portrait of William, Kate, and their children. The note from William expressed his gratitude for the love and care she had shown him during his childhood, and how her influence had helped shape him into the father he was today. As guests continued opening their gifts, it became clear that William and Kate had invested enormous amounts of time and thought into each present. These weren't expensive items purchased from exclusive boutiques. They were meaningful, personal treasures that demonstrated the depth of memory and affection the couple held for each person. Sarah, James's wife, received a small potted plant cutting from Kate's personal herb garden, along with detailed care instructions written in Kate's own handwriting and recipes that featured the specific herb. The note explained that Kate wanted Sarah to have a living piece of Anmer Hall to take home and nurture in her own garden. The gifts ranged from practical items with personal significance to deeply sentimental keepsakes, but each one told a story about the relationship between the giver and receiver. What struck everyone most powerfully was the realization that William and Kate had somehow managed to capture the essence of their individual friendships in tangible form. Guest after guest sat in stunned silence, holding their personalized treasures and reading the heartfelt notes that accompanied each gift. Many had tears in their eyes as they realized the incredible amount of love and effort that had gone into creating these unique presents. The atmosphere on the terrace had shifted from excited anticipation to profound emotion as the true meaning of the gesture began to sink in. The emotional impact of the gift-giving moment rippled through the gathering like a wave. Guests who moments before had been chatting casually were now wiping away tears and embracing each other with newfound appreciation. The realization that William and Kate had devoted so much personal attention to honoring their individual relationships had touched something deep in everyone present. Pippa was among those most visibly moved by her gift. She had received a delicate watercolor painting that Kate had created herself, depicting the church where both sisters had been married. The painting captured not just the building's architectural beauty, but also the emotional significance of that sacred space in their family's story. In the corner, Kate had painted tiny figures representing both wedding parties, and along the bottom edge was a quote about sisterhood that had special meaning between them. William's university rugby teammate. David sat staring at his gift in amazement. He had unwrapped a rugby ball signed not by famous players, but by every member of their old university team, including teammates who now lived in different countries. William had somehow tracked down each person and collected their signatures, along with their current contact information, so David could reconnect with old friends he had lost touch with over the years. The most surprising reaction came from Margaret, an elderly woman who had been the couple's neighbor during their early married years. Her gift was a small wooden birdhouse that William had built himself during the renovation downtime, painted in colors that matched her own garden. Inside the accompanying envelope was a membership to a local bird-watching society that Kate had researched specifically for Margaret's interests. The note thanked Margaret for always being available with a cup of tea and kind words during their adjustment to married life. As guests continued to examine and share their gifts with each other, a remarkable thing began happening. People started telling stories about the memories connected to their presents, creating an organic sharing circle that brought the group closer together. Emma showed others the photographs on her scarf, which prompted other university friends to share their own memories of those carefree days. The children, initially fascinated by the adult emotional responses, began playing a game where they tried to guess the stories behind different gifts. Young George took particular pride in pointing out presents he had helped select, while Charlotte demonstrated the ribbon-tying technique she had used on several packages. Kate moved through the group, checking on each person and listening to their reactions. She was particularly touched when Jessie, William's former nanny, told her that in all her years of caring for royal children, she had never received such a thoughtful acknowledgement of her service. The elderly woman's eyes sparkled as she shared stories about William as a curious toddler, creating connections between past and present that enriched everyone's understanding of the family. William found himself in deep conversation with his cousin about the cricket bat's history. As they talked, other guests gathered around to hear stories about previous generations of the royal family, learning details that had never appeared in any official biography. These informal history lessons, shared in the relaxed setting of the garden party, created intimacy and understanding that formal events could never achieve. The gift exchange had transformed what could have been a simple social gathering into something much more meaningful. Guests who had previously known each other only superficially were now sharing personal stories and forming deeper connections. The common thread of being valued and remembered by William and Kate had created a sense of community among people from different backgrounds and stages of life. As the afternoon progressed, several guests approached William and Kate privately to express their gratitude. Many admitted they had been nervous about attending, worried about protocol or feeling out of place in a royal setting. The personalized gifts had dissolved those barriers completely, making everyone feel genuinely welcomed and valued for who they were as individuals. The conversation naturally turned to the question that was on everyone's mind. How had William and Kate managed to create such perfect, personalized gifts while maintaining their demanding royal schedules? The couple exchanged glances, and Kate smiled as she prepared to share the story behind their gift-giving project. The revelation of how much personal time and effort had gone into each present would prove to be almost as touching as receiving the gifts themselves. Guests were about to learn just how much thought had gone into making each person feel special and remembered. Kate began sharing the behind-the-scenes story of their gift project, and the guests gathered closer to hear every detail. She explained how the idea had sparked from finding those old wedding letters, and how she and William had immediately known they wanted to create something equally meaningful for this celebration. What surprised everyone most was learning about the extensive research that had gone into each gift. William revealed that they had spent weeks reaching out to mutual friends, family members, and even former teachers to gather information and collect items for the personalized presents. For David's rugby ball, William had tracked down teammates across 3 different continents, coordinating time zones and explaining the project to each person. Kate shared the story behind Emma's scarf design, explaining how she had contacted their old university friends to gather additional photographs that Emma might not have copies of. The design process had taken several attempts, as Kate wanted to create something that captured not just their shared memories, but also Emma's personal artistic sensibilities. The couple took turns describing their evening routine during the gift preparation period. After their children were in bed, they would spread out materials across William's study floor, sorting photographs, writing notes, and crafting personalized elements. Kate had learned basic embroidery specifically for this project, spending hours practicing her stitches before adding personal messages to several gifts. William admitted that some gifts had required multiple attempts to get right. Margaret's birdhouse had actually been his third try at woodworking, with the first two efforts ending up in the fireplace. He had watched online tutorials and practiced during his lunch breaks, determined to create something with his own hands rather than having it made by craftspeople. The timeline revelation was particularly touching. Kate explained that they had started the project 3 months earlier, working steadily through their busy schedules. There were evenings when royal duties had kept them out late, but they would still spend 30 minutes working on gifts before going to sleep, determined not to let the project become rushed or impersonal. The most challenging gift, according to William, had been finding the pressed flowers for Kate's art history friend. Some of the flowers needed to come from specific locations with personal significance, which required planning trips and careful preservation techniques. Kate had consulted with botanical experts to ensure the flowers would maintain their beauty for years to come. Guests were amazed to learn that the children had been actively involved in age-appropriate ways. George had helped choose books and games for the younger guests, while Charlotte had practiced her handwriting to create some of the gift cards. Louis had contributed his artistic skills by helping select colors for various projects, though his parents diplomatically didn't mention which specific gifts featured his color choices. The couple also shared some amusing mishaps from their gift-making process. William had accidentally embroidered his own finger while helping Kate with needlework, and Kate had spent an entire evening recreating a watercolor painting after spilling tea on the original. These human moments of imperfection made their efforts even more endearing to their guests. Perhaps the most touching revelation was that William and Kate had kept detailed notes about each person throughout the year, jotting down interests mentioned in conversations, favorite colors observed, and hobbies discussed during various encounters. This level of attention to their friends' lives demonstrated how much they valued these relationships. Beyond the formal requirements of their royal roles, the logistics of keeping the project secret had been surprisingly complex. The couple had needed to coordinate with their staff to ensure materials could be delivered without arousing suspicion, and they had enlisted Kate's sister Pippa to help with some of the more delicate coordination efforts. Even their children had been sworn to secrecy, which had proven to be quite challenging given their natural excitement about surprises. As the story unfolded, guests began to understand that this wasn't just about receiving beautiful gifts, it was about being truly seen and remembered by people whose lives were constantly pulled in multiple directions by duty and obligation. The time and effort invested in each present represented a conscious choice to prioritize personal relationships. Despite overwhelming professional demands, the revelation of the gift-making process had created an even deeper appreciation for what they had received. Knowing about the late evenings, the multiple attempts, and the careful research made each present feel even more precious. Several guests commented that they would treasure their gifts not just for their beauty or personal significance, but for the love and dedication that had gone into creating them. As the sun began to set over the Norfolk countryside, casting a warm golden light across the gardens of Anmer Hall, the atmosphere of the celebration reached its most heartwarming peak. The gift exchange had transformed a lovely social gathering into something truly extraordinary, a moment that would be remembered and treasured by everyone present for years to come. The children, who had been patiently listening to the adult conversations about the gifts, suddenly had their own surprise to share. George, Charlotte, and Louis approached their parents with a small wrapped package, announcing that they too had prepared something special. Inside was a hand-drawn card featuring stick figure representations of all the guests, with each person's name carefully written in the children's developing handwriting. The cover read, "Thank you for being our friends too," in colorful crayon letters. This unexpected addition from the children prompted a fresh wave of emotion among the guests. Many realized that they had been thinking of this as William and Kate's celebration, but the children's contribution reminded everyone that they were being welcomed into a family's most precious space. their home, where three young people were growing up surrounded by love and genuine relationships. As the evening progressed, something magical began happening. Instead of the typical end-of-party departure where guests gradually slip away, people seemed reluctant to leave. Small groups formed throughout the gardens, with guests sharing stories prompted by their personalized gifts. The usual social barriers between different age groups and backgrounds had completely dissolved, replaced by genuine connections forged through shared appreciation for William and Kate's thoughtfulness. Margaret, the elderly neighbor, found herself deep in conversation with several younger guests about gardening techniques, while David's stories about university rugby had captivated a mixed group of adults and older children. Emma was sketching portraits of the children in her notebook, promising to send copies to the family as her own thank you gesture. Kate moved through these organic conversation groups, not as a hostess managing an event, but as someone genuinely enjoying the company of people she cared about. She spent extra time with Jessie, William's former nanny, listening to stories about William's childhood that even she had never heard. These intimate moments of connection seemed to energize rather than exhaust her. William found himself in his element, no longer the formal prince performing royal duties, but simply a man surrounded by friends who had known him through various stages of his life. He was particularly animated while talking with his university friends, sharing updates about his current interests and asking detailed questions about their own lives and families. The catering staff, who had initially planned to begin cleanup as the sun set, quietly adjusted their schedule to accommodate the extended celebration. They could see that something special was happening, and their professionalism ensured that the magical atmosphere remained undisturbed. As darkness finally began to fall, string lights automatically illuminated the terrace and garden pathways, creating an enchanting ambiance that extended the celebration naturally into the evening. Someone suggested gathering for a group photograph, and the resulting image captured 30 people with genuinely joyful expressions, holding their personalized gifts and surrounded by the three children who had made the day even more special. The farewells, when they finally came, were unlike typical party departures. Instead of polite thank yous and promises to stay in touch, guests were making specific plans to meet again. Phone numbers were exchanged, children arranged playdates, and several people offered to help with various charitable projects that Kate had mentioned during conversations throughout the day. Each departure included a personal moment with William and Kate, where guests could express their gratitude for both the gifts and the deeper experience of feeling genuinely valued and remembered. Many commented that they had arrived as invited guests but were leaving feeling like family members. The final guest to leave was Jessie, William's former nanny, who had been offered a comfortable guest room for the night rather than making the drive home in the dark. As she hugged William and Kate goodnight, she whispered that in all her years of royal service, she had never witnessed such a perfect balance between formal hospitality and genuine warmth. After everyone had departed, William and Kate stood together on their terrace, surrounded by the remnants of a perfect day. The children had fallen asleep in various comfortable spots around the house, exhausted from the excitement and attention. As they cleaned up the few remaining items, both felt a deep sense of satisfaction that went beyond having hosted a successful event. They had accomplished exactly what they had hoped for, creating a celebration that honored their relationships while showcasing their home as a place of genuine warmth and connection. The personalized gifts had been the catalyst, but the real magic had come from bringing together people they loved in an atmosphere of gratitude and appreciation. Standing in their garden under the Norfolk stars, William and Kate knew they had created something truly special. The memory of this day would strengthen their friendships, but more importantly, it had reminded everyone present that even in a world of formal obligations and public scrutiny, authentic relationships built on mutual care and attention remained the most precious gifts of all.